You're listening to the Write Project podcast and radio program, a show about writing and modern Newfoundland author culture. This program is produced and recorded at CHMR FM 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and is aired on other great stations in the province and elsewhere in the country. It can also be heard online at www.chmr.ca. I'm your host, Matthew Ledrew. Thank you all for joining us for a special episode of the Write Project podcast. We're here today talking with Jon Dobbin, author of the best-selling novel The Starving, a Weird West horror western fusion novel that's releasing on May 16th from Engine Books. The launch party will be at Geek Public House downtown. We're here to talk with the author ahead of his amazing new launch.
Yay.
Yay.
Thanks for having me.
No problem, anytime. So Jon, you're actually going to be on a few times next month. If it's okay with you, I actually just wanted to start off asking a few different questions about your life as an author, advice you might have for other authors, to kind of get a sense of who you are and why people might want to come pick up your book.
Yay.
Jon, do you have any advice for your younger writing self?
Just write. That's what I would say. Don't come up with excuses. Don't think that there's too much to do. Just write.
Yeah.
Make the time. Do it.
It's like anything. There's always going to be a reason not to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you energized by writing, or are you exhausted by it?
I think the way I write is really strange because I have 3 kids and I have a full-time job and I have a wife, and family life. I think I'm always exhausted because of that. So writing,
you kind of exude exhaustion. You're like,
that's a nice thing to say.
you kind of do that. You're a very nice guy, but you kind of have this. I am too tired to smile. You'll have to trust that I am happy.
Yeah. I feel tired a lot, but I just fit writing in. I don't know if I'd say that it energizes me or if it exhausts me. I do know that when I come up with something, like if I'm struggling with how I'm going to move from one point to the next in what I'm writing, and I do figure that out, that does energize me a bit. It gets me pretty stoked, but I wouldn't say writing in general does either or.
Do you think you'll read reviews of your book when it comes out?
Yeah, I think I will, for sure. Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to like them or not, but I'll definitely read them.
What to you, in your mind, is your favorite unknown book? Like, do you have a book that you love that you don't think anyone else is even aware of?
No, I think the Robert E. Howard books on Conan, all of his short stories, I don't think many people are aware of that.
Anymore. Like, there was a time when it was all that was known. But
yeah, for sure. But I don't think, people, when they say Conan, they think of the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie.
Well, not only that, but it was too... I don't believe this, but the popular consensus is that it was too pulpy to be in school, and now it's too old to be current, so that stuff kind of falls away, when really I think there could be a pulp class, we could do that.
Oh, for sure, it's poetry is what it is. He just paints pictures for you.
Yeah. What is your favorite book from childhood?
From childhood, my favorite book, I think, was Batman Nightfall. It was when the Batman had been broken by Bane when I was a kid, and they came out with a novelization about Azrael taking over for Batman.
I think I've read that.
Yeah, and I think it was called Nightfall, and I loved it. I read it multiple times.
I was a huge fan of that. That kind of got me in. I was a big comic book reader as a kid. That was my gateway into reading.
Yeah. And
then my gateway to transition from comics into novels. Not that I don't still love comics, but my gateway from that were the adaptations, where like the Christopher Golden was my first real novel that I sought out.
Yep.
This is probably going to be the same thing. What was the first book that got you interested in reading? Same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah. First book that made you cry?
I don't think I've ever cried at a book.
Really?
Really?
Yeah. Time Traveler's Wife?
I never read that.
Give it a try. See if you shed a single manly tear.
Yeah, I don't think I've cried. I thought about that question before, but no, I don't.
You're dead inside. We understand.
It's true.
Yeah. What to you is the hardest part of the creative process thus far?
I think the hardest part of the creative process is actually finding the time to do it, like forcing yourself to sit down and actually take part in it. And it takes a lot of different... people can accomplish that in a lot of different ways. for me, it's just getting out there and doing it, setting goals, seeing the goals met, interacting with people with like-minded goals. That's really what helps me do it.
Yeah, that would do it. That would do it well. Have you Googled yourself?
I did at one point, not recently,
I see.
but I did at one point, and I found a guy with my name in New York, I think, something like that.
Well, first name John, even if your last name's a little bit obscure, there's going to be another one. Same thing with Matthew. I mean,
Yeah.
there's three of me out there.
Yeah.
Not actually me, but yeah.
Who knows? Maybe.
Oh, I had some funny experiences at the table at a con one year, and they people came up and said, "See, Matt LeDrew, he wrote a novel," and they were like talking about this guy, Matt LeDrew. They couldn't believe he wrote a novel. I just let them go on, and I was like, it's me, right? And they're like, "No, we know him," and I'm like, him, like,
a Matt LeDrew.
yeah, you don't know the Matt LeDrew. This poor kid, he's about 10 years younger than me, and he must despise me because I scooped up all the good social media names.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever get reader's block?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I find that this actually, before I started forcing myself to read a little bit more, I found that I could read a lot for a few months, but then I'd get to the point where I'm like, hey, okay, I'm not really interested in doing much reading right now. And so it would take me a while to get over that.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a reader's block. But I've been finding lately that where I have been reading a lot more, that if I get into a book and it's not what I envisioned, I kind of put off reading it.
Yep.
Like I don't want to read it anymore.
Yep.
And I have to really force myself unwillingly to read it to get through it.
I just give up on those books. Unless it's something I need to read for class or for research for something, it's just gone. Like there's a famous author that I've never been able to read one of his books. I've tried multiple times, but William Gibson.
Yeah.
He's famous. He's one of the top, like, when people, think of the hardcore sci-fi people, it's like he's always... Yeah. He's one of the top... Neuromancer, exactly that. Cannot do it. And I tried to read that, tried to read its sequels, tried to read something other by him, and I don't know what it is about his style. I tried ebook, I tried print, I tried audiobook. I just give up at about 3 chapters and be like, I could do better things.
I managed to get through that, but I see what you're saying about it.
I don't know what, like, I can handle different styles. I can handle, like, Rendezvous with Rama, like, and I can handle Snow Crash. Like, it's,
The only book that I've done that with recently was the first of that series of books that Stephen King did with Peter Straub.
Okay. Talisman.
Yeah, I did not enjoy that whatsoever. Couldn't get past the first couple of chapters. Had to put it down.
Interesting.
Which is weird because Stephen King's one of my favorite writers.
Yeah. Which can only lead you to believe that it's either the Straub side of it that you're not liking or that they're losing something in collaboration.
Yeah,
Might be interesting to read something by Straub only and see if you have trouble with it. And then you're like, oh, well, that's what the problem was for me.
Yeah, blame it all on him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, everyone has different tastes. So, I mean, just because you don't like it. Have you ever hidden anything in a book or a story, like a hidden element or a hidden part of a story that you leave there for people to find?
It's interesting that you bring that up because the writing group that I'm in right now, we made a pact a few weeks ago where we were going to include a character in all of our stories that we're writing.
That's hilarious.
It's just a character, and I actually included him in the novel that I'm working on now, which I presented to a writing class, and no one commented on the fact that this strange character was suddenly there for a second.
Is it like Mr. Mixoplitolix or something? Like
no, it's just a goat.
Just a goat.
It's a goat.
Just a goat.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds like when the movie rights happen, there are going to be some fierce battles over creator.
Well, we thought it was going to be... we think it's going to be fun, like, when we're older, like, if we've published all of these with that character in it, that...
The unofficial goat anthology?
Yeah, like, when people are reading, like, people are going through our books, and they're reading, they're like, hey, wait a second, I think I've read a book with this guy in it before, and then they go back and find this other book, and it's like, wait a second. And they're all different genres, they're all different takes on it.
Okay.
And there's a lot of us in this group. Like
Yeah.
There's 10 or 12 of us that regularly meet. So
Statistically, some of these will probably reach print.
yeah.
All right. I just picture the goat. Like, people look back and they find connections between, like, Tolkien and
C.S. Lewis.
Thank you. People look back and they find connections between Tolkien and C.S. Lewis because they know that they were friends and that they, would talk about their works. They would talk about stuff like that. People are like, if any of these books get successful, there's going to be like, oh, the goats are the connections. All these people knew each other. Yeah. Oh my. How do you select the names of your characters?
That is interesting. With the Weird West, I actually just came up with a list myself of names that sounded like they came from the Wild West, Okay. But the novel that I'm working on now, I kind of wanted to have a bunch of different cultures represented by different cultures within the book itself. So I searched up online some names. And each of the names I chose had a meaning attached to them, and I chose that for each character based on the meaning of the name.
Okay, so you're picking names based on almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, where if it's like Alexander means hero of the people, so that would be a good hero.
Like
name.
I have one character who has 3 or 4 different names in the book based on the people he's interacting with.
I see.
And one of his names means outsider.
Okay.
When he's acting in one part of the world, but when he goes to another part of the world, it means warrior. His name changes, what they call him.
Interesting.
So yeah, like it kind of goes like that.
Interesting. Okay. How long does it take you to write a novel, or alternatively, how much do you write per day?
Well, I can't really speak on the novel because it took me about a year to write the novel that I'm getting published.
That's a decent amount of time.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I think this novel that I'm working on now is actually going to be done before a year's up. So that's,
So you're improving your output.
My speed.
Yeah.
But I try and write at least 1,000 words a day. That's a goal that I set.
Yeah.
I
share that same goal.
Yeah, I rarely reach it, unfortunately. Last month, for instance, I set a goal of 650 words a day because I was doing a lot of editing on both my novel and some short stories that I'm trying to polish up to send off to different things.
Yep.
I find that when I set the goal, I find a hard time meeting that goal. Like, for instance, like I said, it was about 650, and I always struggled to meet that 650. Even if I'd finished my editing completely and I wasn't doing any editing that day, the 650 was a struggle for me. But now, this month, I have 1,000 word goal again.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I can meet it, but it's still a struggle for me. So it's whatever goal I set.
It's a mental barrier.
Yeah.
Where you'll always get exhausted about 10% of the way to the barrier.
Yeah, I think I'm just naturally lazy.
Yeah. Yes. What are you reading right now?
As I said earlier, I picked up a bunch of these really cheesy old Western books, and this one's actually from like 1991. It's a George or Gregory Sheriff's book, and it's a book that has 2 books in it, 2 short books, and one was Shadow Valley. That's the first part of it. I finished that. And next is Fort Vengeance. I just started on
Fort Vengeance.
Fort Vengeance, yeah.
Okay. What does writing success or success in writing look like to you?
Really, it's just kind of unbelievable to me. It's kind of dreamlike because I've had this goal to be published, to be recognized as a writer and an author pretty much my whole life, and I never did think it was going to happen. So now that I'm actually getting some recognition around it, it's actually kind of unbelievable for me.
Yeah,
like I have a hard time believing it. Like I interact with it, I deal with it, I do it, but I'm still kind of like, that's not me.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your writing kryptonite? Like, what's the thing that can stop you from getting any writing done today? Is it your kids?
Most times, yeah. It's my kids, or if I'm feeling sick or tired, like overly tired.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that really stops me lately.
Yeah. Kids are always it.
Yeah.
From, like,
kids.
the
Sick
kids
kids
in my life.
Yeah. My 2-year-old is sick now, so he's taking some time away.
Yeah, and you can't reasonably, you can reasonably expect another adult. You can say to them, listen, I've got to do my thing, and they'll say, oh, okay, kind of thing, but you can't expect a child that's dependent on you to be reasonable.
And we should be able to.
Yeah.
Children should know.
Yeah.
Should know that when we're writing, they need to shut up. You need to stop being sick while Daddy writes.
Yeah. Buck it up. What is your writing spirit animal?
Spirit animal for writing.
Yeah.
So what it looks like for my writing, an animal.
Or you as a writer.
For
some reason, for you, I picture a crow. I picture a little crow that you've named Poe just sitting on your shoulder.
Yeah. It could be. I'm thinking it's a bear, and I think of a bear because it's making me write. It's, if anything's going to motivate you, it's going to be I don't want to be eaten by a bear. And so he represents my goals, and he's like, you got to get there, or you're going to be eaten.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I'm looking at right now.
Great. Yeah. Who are your author friends? Your friends who are authors, and how do they help you?
Well, as I said, I have a lot of friends in my writing group, Write Club Newfoundland. So I have Shelley Churchill, who's also in Chillers from the Rock, Amanda Labonte, Chelsea B., Laura, a bunch of them. Yeah. I can go on, Stacey Oakley. But I think my closest friends aren't published yet. They will be. John Mercer and Steve Power. I've known them. Well, I've known Steve since I was 5 years old. John I've known for a good 20 years, I think. They are exceptional writers. Actually, Steve was one of the reasons I started writing. When he was in high school, he wrote a short story that I read while I was at his house at one point. And the way he wrote it, I thought he did a fantastic job writing it. It really inspired me. And I said, okay, if my friend can do it, maybe I can do it. And so that really kind of inspired me. Mm-hmm. So he's a fantastic writer with great ideas. And John is just a ridiculous writer. He's...
I've actually known John for a lot of years. He used to work at a place and manage the engine P.O. box, basically. But I used to have to, before we had an office, I had to get stuff done, I would walk down to the place where he worked. Yep. And he would mail stuff for me. He would keep the packages. He would make sure that the books that came in, make sure that they were kept in a good spot where they weren't going to get hurt. He faxed off all the stuff for me that I needed to get engine, classified a company and that stuff.
Yeah, John is a good dude, and his writing is actually pretty unbelievable. He has and he's a great artist too. He's a great graphic designer. His job now is signs and things like that, and car wraps and stuff. And he designs a lot of that stuff. So he's really fantastic, and he's a very creative guy. He doesn't come across as it, and I don't think he likes to come across as it, but he's a great guy, and he's pretty inspiring in the way he writes. He's a slower writer, I think. You mentioned to me at one point that I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Yeah, he takes it to the next level.
I see.
He has to get everything right before he gets it out. But when he gets it out, it's going to be fantastic.
Cool. Who inspired you to write?
I had a couple of good inspirations to write. In the literary world, it was kind of Lisa Moore was kind of the one that kind of inspired me, because she was a local Newfoundland author who was getting national attention, so it was pretty cool for that, and I do enjoy her writing. My father was an English teacher growing up. He loves to write poetry. He was always writing. He's continuing to write now, and in his retirement, he's writing a bit more now, poetry. So that's kind of been an inspiration to me. My friends, Steve Power, for instance, his early writing in high school made me, I'm 5 years younger than him, so made me aspire to be a bit of a writer.
Cool.
And even now with the writing group that I'm in, they inspire me to just keep writing, to keep on track of things and try and do my best as a writer.
Cool. Okay, and last one. How do you feel about writing outside your own demographic? Writing characters that aren't from the same cultural place as you?
I think for me, I don't mind doing that. I like writing young characters.
And you're old.
And I'm old.
You're very old.
I am. Well, I'm 35, 36.
You look 60.
I do.
Yeah.
I look probably older.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like the younger characters. The hardest one for me recently is women characters. I don't know.
Female characters.
Yeah, female characters. I'm afraid that I'm not going to represent them well enough.
That's a fair fear. I'm always afraid whenever I write something that's not a white cis male that I'm not doing it correctly.
Yeah. And otherwise, I mean, I'm afraid of writing certain cultures, like my book, the Starving, that's going to come out. One of the main characters is a Native American.
Yep.
And of course, I wrote it, and I tried my best. He's my favorite character in the book.
Yep.
And he's fantastic. But did I represent him well? You know, I never touched base with any Native people to kind of figure out any of the Aboriginals or anything like that. I never reached out to find out, is this guy okay? So I'm kind of worried about that. But I know that it's a fictional account kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, other cultures I'm not too worried about. Like, for instance, I have some Middle Eastern named characters in my fantasy novel that I'm working on.
Yeah.
But I'm not so worried about them because it's a fantasy.
It is a very fantasy setting, and you're borrowing the name more than the culture from what I've read.
Yeah, I can just create the culture the way I want it. So while I don't want it to come across as negative on those people, I'm not as worried about it because it's my own culture that I've created.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
But female characters are always a bit of a worry for me.
We'll see. So what have you been working on lately?
Lately, I have been working on a new novel that should be complete, I'm hoping, by the end of this summer.
Okay.
It's a fantasy, kind of a different take on a fantasy novel that is kind of rounding out to be a pretty fun little project that I took on that I didn't actually intend to make a novel out of. So
okay.
It's gonna be
what
fun.
was it? What did it start out to be?
It started out as a bit of an idea that I had from years and years ago. It was actually started out as kind of like a dream that I had about a flying castle.
Okay.
And people on it. And I just wrote a couple of short stories based around that idea, people interacting with it or seeing a flying castle. And it kind of evolved from there. Built characters around it. Came up with a couple of different main characters, and it's still kind of evolving now. So hopefully by the time I finish it, I have a good direction to go with it.
Sounds cool. Sounds like it's your own little, like, Dark Tower, like something that kind of haunts you. Have you read the Dark Tower books?
Yes, I've read all of Stephen King's almost all of his Dark Tower books. I kind of got waylaid at 5, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
5's a weird spot to get waylaid at. What would get you waylaid there?
I don't know. It was weird. 5 is the Wolves of Calla, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Very action-heavy book.
Yeah, I started reading it, and it's weird because of all the things to get waylaid by. An action-heavy book is weird to get waylaid by, but I don't know what it was. Maybe, I think when I was originally reading them, I was in university, and I was reading them because I was working in the library here. And during the summer, it was easy to read books because we didn't have so many people here, so I'd read lots and lots of books, and I read up to 5, and I think 5 was probably the end of my time in the library, and so I just
makes it sound like you're walking to your death. Like, I've watched too much Doctor Who. You're like, it's the end of my time in the library.
Yeah. And that kind of was actually what happened, because then I went into studies and stuff like that, so I probably put it aside, something like that. It's been so long now, I can't remember, but
Okay, so let's talk about the main event. This Thursday at Geek Public House downtown, you're launching your first novel, The Starving, which has actually already gone bestseller from the pre-orders on Amazon alone, from the ebook pre-orders. Let's talk about The Starving. First of all, that's an interesting title. Was that always the title?
The initial title was Untitled.
Okay.
And then it moved to Hunger, and now it's The Starving.
I gotta say, coming up with titles is probably my least favorite part of the novel writing process.
I am the worst
No, I'm the worst. Have you read some of my titles?
I have.
They're bad.
But you got titles. I can never
do.
come up with titles.
That's true, but like on my sixth book, Ignorance is Bliss, that's got to be the most generic thing on the planet. Like, if you Googled Ignorance is Bliss without my name on it, it would be like the 500th page of Google.
Yeah, I don't know.
The Starving's not much better. I mean,
No.
one's ever going to Google The Starving without the words Jon Dobbin after it and actually get the book.
Well, I mean, even my titles in Chillers from the Rock, Man of Fire, and The Chosen, they're pretty standard as well.
Yeah, we had a problem early on. One of our authors, she's now a partner with Engine Books. Her book of short stories was called Compendium, and Ellen Curtis, and she thought that was very avant-garde. I'm like, okay, but you can't Google it. Like,
No.
everything has a compendium. Like,
Yeah.
Star Wars, the compendium. X, the compendium. It's a good book collection, though.
Oh, good. But, I'm really bad at coming up with titles. I don't know why I find it so hard, but it's just something that plagues me.
So what's The Starving about?
The Starving is a Western, or a Weird West tale, I guess you could say, if you want to go into the subgenre of it, about a group of mercenaries who are hunting an Indian, as they would call it back then in the 1800s, throughout Colorado. And they bring him to a town to turn him in for his reward, and the town is plagued by death, and they decide to help investigate. Yeah.
Sounds fun.
And
Sounds like
supernatural stuff.
And that was the one that actually won the first draft of that, or the initial chunk of the first draft of that was what actually won the 48-hour novel writing contest.
Yeah.
It actually tied for first with Kelly Powers' manuscript. She was on the show a few weeks ago.
Yep. That's the one. I've made a goal that once I won that, and then I went into NaNoWriMo for that year, 2017, and I said, okay, I'm going to get 50,000 words added to whatever I've written, and then that's going to be my novel. So it pretty much took me a year to start, complete, and then edit it, and send it out to get some readers to take a look at it and see if it's actually good, and then to put it in.
I know a few authors. Chelsea B, who was on here last week, she has she said that for a long time, until the last year or so, she wrote exclusively during NaNoWriMo. I'm wondering if that's a part of the Newfoundland experience. There's the Newfoundland experience and there's the NaNoWriMo experience. And where they cross-section is, we have a lot of seasonal employment here, be it in the education industry or the fisheries industry or anything like that. I wonder if that helps that part of it, where it's like, I am a seasonal writer in that I write during November, and that is all for some people.
It's hard for me to say, because I kind of took it on more as a excuse to write. It's just another goal. The way I approach writing is a little bit different. I approach it like it's a video game. That's how I'm able to keep my word counts up. That's how I'm able to write every day. That's why I need, and NaNoWriMo, as you said, has those like visual goals that you can see. You meet a goal.
A lot.
You meet a goal every day, 1,600 words or something like that daily is what you need to meet to meet your 30,000 or 50,000 goal. And for me, it's like those achievements, right? The bleep bloop, suddenly an achievement, and that's kind of the way I write, and I found it really motivating to get me through. But in terms of seasonal, I can see why it would be something that Newfoundlanders may be more attracted to around that, because we always have something else to do. And there's always something else that we could be doing at that time, whether it's day jobs, whether it's, dealing with kids, anything else. So then when we have a month that actually gives us an excuse to say, hey, let's sit down and write, then I can see why that would happen for some people.
All right, well, thanks for coming on again. For all of you, we'll be here again next week at 4:30 Newfoundland time or online at chmr.ca. Please tune in and we'll talk more about writing culture in Newfoundland.